Hi, my name is Donovan, and this is my first year at College of Marin. I enrolled in this ethnic studies course to educate myself on the history of how ethnic minorities have been mistreated, how they are still being mistreated, and how that may or may not have changed over time. To answer the question of can black people be racist, I feel like we must first define racism. I believe that racism has multiple definitions. The first being the simpler, more digestible idea that racism is prejudice based on race, prejudgment against another person or group of people based on race or their ethnic background. This is mostly on a smaller, human sized scale of interactions between people. Believing that someone is not as educated as you, refined or as civilized as you, believing and enforcing stereotypes, or using slurs or derogatory language based on or around race. These are all examples of small scale personal racism. It can range from an ideology, the idea of supremacy or inferiority between the races, or it can be an ignorance that has been ingrained in a person over time. This leads me to my second definition of racism. Now, the second definition is a more complicated issue, and that is the idea of systematic racism. This kind of racism is based on the ideas of the aforementioned small scale personal racism, but has grown over time into an ingrained system that affects nearly all ways of life for the people that fall into that system. It tips the scales in the favor of one race and, in turn, lowers the quality of life of all others. It's about power and how that power is distributed. To use America as an example, it is easier to be white in America. That is to say, being white in America does not put you at a disadvantage. You don't have a harder time trying to get an education, get a good job, to be a part of your community, to get a proper health care or social services. Those things aren't really affected in a negative way by you being white. On the other hand, from what I've seen, what I've read, researched, seen on TV, online, and heard personally from people, is that being anything but white, especially being black in America, greatly lowers your chances at achieving those things compared to a white person. It's significantly harder to get a decent job, harder to go to college. It's harder for a person of color to be accepted in a community that doesn't necessarily look like them. It's harder for a person of color to get proper health or social care. And why is that? It's because they were born into a system that puts them at a disadvantage from birth. That is systematic racism. For decades or centuries, putting a certain group of people at a disadvantage so they could never possibly rise to power through their own means. So, to answer the question posed, yes, I believe that black people can be racist. I believe that a black person can have preconceived ideas about another person based on race. They can believe in stereotypes, and they can use slurs and language based on race in an attempt to dehumanize another person. But what I also believe is that in today's society, a black person could never be as racist as a white person can. They can never hold the power behind those words or beliefs in a way that a white person can. They don't have the resources to enforce those beliefs in a forceful way. That is the key difference to me. Thank you.